Welcome, friends. That was for Olivia. And we know it is the Jeopardy song, but it's called Think. And we are here today to remember and to think. You know, often when somebody describes a cancer diagnosis to me, especially one like Jody's, they liken it to a dark valley, walking in the shadow of death. For many people, that seems pretty accurate, as if we are in a dark valley and we can't really see which direction to go and a path that leads us out. And yet, through that, in all the ways that are reflected in this psalm, Jody would have told you that you don't walk through that valley by yourself. Joe and Mom and Dad and the rest of the family were the goodness and mercy that followed her all the days of her life. Together they talked, they remembered, they celebrated, they cried, and they made room for each other and what they were going through. It was grace-filled and precious. And now as Jody does dwell in the house of the Lord, these words are meant for you left behind. Words of love and care, and to remember you're not alone. As God walked with Jody, God walks with you and grieves with you and will comfort you. Friends, more assurance can be found in the book of Isaiah, but Jody picked out some particular things. Words from a song called the First Song of Isaiah. It's a song she learned at church camp, and we're going to sing part of that in a minute. But I want you to listen to the words that inspired that song. In the Bible, this is labeled a hymn of trust. It's Isaiah 12, verses 1 through 6. You will say on that day, I thank you, Lord. Though you were angry with me, your anger turned away and you comforted me. God is indeed my salvation. I will trust and won't be afraid. Yea, the Lord is my strength and my shield. He has become my salvation. You will draw water with joy from the springs of salvation, and you will say on that day, thank you, Lord. Call on God's name, proclaim God's deeds among all the people, declare that God's name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, who has done glorious things. Proclaim this throughout the earth. Shout and sing for joy, City of Zion, because the Holy One of Israel is great among you. As I said, those words are part of a song that Jody learned at church camp, the First Song of Isaiah, and it made an impact on her. Those words gave her the assurance that she was loved by God, giving her the joy that comes through knowing about salvation. Though Jody never preached it, she lived it, and it can be seen in her family and friends. She took the confidence and strength that shaped her at places like Lake Louise and Camp Barakel into her day-to-day life as an adult. She knew what it meant to be a Christian and a disciple of Jesus. My name is Pam Clyde.
I'm Jody's cousin, and it is a great privilege to be able to speak to you today about what Jody has meant to me, as well as our extended family over the years. Teacher, professor, department chair, author, photographer, artist, studio owner, home renovator, aunt and great aunt, world traveler, friend. Each one of these titles is admirable on its own. Put them all together and we can see just how Jody's life was truly remarkable. I'm sure each of you could add a few more titles to that already distinguished list based on your own interactions with Jody. To me, what was most incredible about Jody was the way she made me feel whenever I was around her. There's a Maya Angelou quote that reads, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." This was Jody. She made you feel like whatever you were telling her was the most interesting thing she had heard in a while. When quite honestly, it was quite likely she had done something significantly more interesting very recently. Visiting 7 UNESCO sites in 7 days, riding a motorcycle around the Amalfi Coast, changing people's perspectives through her books, her art, and her teaching. She lived this amazing life and had this incredible impact on so many, but it was her listening and her kindness that are above all else for me. She would have that incomparable, ever-present smile while she listened and simply made you feel special. As we try to understand why we would be here, grieving her at such a young age, I encourage us all to think about how to be more like Jody. During these times when everything is so chaotic and our world and our country seem so divided, let's choose to listen and to give each other some grace. Let's think about how we're making others feel as we interact with them. Rather than judging each other for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, just choose to be like Jody. Choose grace, choose kindness, and choose compassion. Look for ways to help each other, independent of any apparent differences. Jody was bringing messages of support and equality through her books years ago. Choose to be like Jody and really think about how you're making others feel. I believe that by learning from her, we can pay tribute to her in the most appropriate way by taking steps to be like Jody. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Brandel. I came into contact with Jody in about 1990, and we've kind of stayed in and out of friendship and kept in contact this whole, over the years. This is an amazing family. It being Christmas time, I can never forget one of the best Christmases I've ever had in my entire life. We spent with this family. It was just a blast. They're just good people. Meeting Joe is just, what a great guy. I can't wait to talk to you about bare knuckle fighting. I mean, I'm interested in this thing. So I went down to Florida to see my mom and dad this weekend, and I was gone from Friday, and thinking about what I was going to say today, doing the different things, I sat in the airport. How much fun travel is nowadays. So I had time to think of some different things that came to my mind with Jody. Didn't even scratch the surface with the drawings and the photography of the waterfalls. I mean, just amazing stuff. So I sat and I wrote this little poem, about, for Jody, and it's called Jody Is. A gallery on Main Street with a second floor suite, where aspiring artists were welcome to meet. Standing on the shore, toes in the sand, the wind in her face, seems to be a peaceful place. Walking on the trails and the woods up north, her head is moving back and forth. Her eyes try to focus. She tries to focus with her eyes, looking around for her dad's next surprise. Was that perfect when she said that? That was... Her journey led her to many places, different faces ages, and races, from north, south, east, and west, with a passion for art deep in her chest. Our hearts are heavy, our tears will flow, our healing has a long way to go. Some days we won't know how to start, but to the end of our days, Jody will be in our hearts. Thank you.
You have to bear with me. I'm not really a very good speaker, better mechanic than a speaker, but as I have here, where to start? How many times have we heard when somebody passes how great they were, how wonderful they were, how gracious they were, their wonderful smile, their kind words. How if they only had the time, what great things they would have done or accomplished. And I would think to myself, am I at the right funeral? But let me tell you, you are at the right funeral for all those things and more. From the first time I met Jody, she was just a bright light that made you feel good. She always had a kind word. She always wanted to help. And I don't think I ever seen her without her beautiful smile. Her talent and her ambition were like those of 100 people put into one. In the last little bit of time before her departure, we jokingly said to each other, she lived her life backwards. Instead of working until you can retire, then get everything arranged, and then decide to go to see the world, she wanted to see the world first and bring it to others in her paintings, photography, her books, her teaching abilities. Jody had so many accomplishments. She did things many can only dream of doing. I had many great laughs, times, and serious conversations over the years growing up with Jody. She was always positive in what she wanted and was going to accomplish her dreams. But most of all, she knew how to treat others with kindness and open arms if you needed it. So I'm going to say that with the utmost confidence, Jody was and always will be one of the top most wonderful people in my life. And I know many of yours. So I say with much love, goodbye for now, and may God hold your spirit close.
It has been wonderful to see the beautiful surroundings where Jody grew up. When we were here last, Jody and I were messaging each other in her hospital room in Midland. I told her that I loved the thought of her sisters, and neighborhood friends growing up and playing on the street in front of her house and having the lake as her backyard playground. Jody messaged back, I love that your family got to learn a little bit more about me. Peterson Drive was pretty ideal. I've been blessed. Everyone who has come into contact with Jody is immediately struck with her welcoming smile and her sense of calm that draws you in. Long before mindfulness practices were in mainstream topics, Jody existed in a state of mindfulness. She saw you. You knew she was listening to hear you, and she demonstrated compassion and interest in you as a person. In conversation with Jody, she would give reassurings, yeah, and say, right, as she listened. She was in the moment with you, and you could feel that from our little green, wild-eyed girl. My observation of Jody is that people gravitated toward her because of the way she made them feel. Jody had a gift that allowed people to feel good about themselves. I have messages from Jody that say, Hi, sister, sending you positive vibes today. And another that said, never let anyone make you doubt your marvelous, beautiful, and compassionate self. Her words landed differently than other words of encouragement. In reflecting why that is, I realize it's because you knew they were genuine, and she really meant it. Like actually passing on her energy to you to use. Jody is a local favorite back in our hometown of Belfast, New York. So many people were cheered her on and supported her, particularly after her diagnosis. They wanted to take care of her when she was sick and give some of the love she showed so many back to her. Jody's friends and family from all over the country were eager to wear Jody's t-shirt design, which read, "Don't quit," with the letters highlighted, "Do it." Jody's spirit of perseverance and determination is apparent throughout her work in her professional life. In 2017, Jody wrote a piece in the journal, The Educational Forum, titled "Too Important to Quit, a call to teachers' support of art." She writes in her professional biography that, quote, "I approach education with a belief that both teacher and student enter into a mutual contract of transformation. As an art educator, one is required to inspect his or her own learning, vulnerabilities, and strength to help others explore their own possibilities within their growth." In this vein, Jody writes, "I do not only teach art, but I teach my students how art benefits teaching, learning, and living more fully in general." Among many of the gifts Jody has left us with is the belief in empowering ourselves and others. It is important to her that adolescents growing into adulthood and those discovering themselves later in life, particularly those living in rural areas like Sanford, Michigan, and Belfast, New York, who may feel trapped or stuck, to reflect on that part of themselves that make them shine, to look for the power that we all have inside of ourselves to make things happen. To honor Jody's passion and memory, the Jodi Patterson Fund for Art, Culture, and Rural Empowerment has been established to inspire others, to expand their worldview, and to influence others in positivity and perspective. Aside from Jody's immediate family and my brother Joe, maybe most of us were surprised to read of all of Jody's professional accomplishments in travel within this country and other countries around the world. She was skilled in documenting its beauty and sometimes to call attention to the deterioration of the natural world. In an interview entitled "Artist Jodi Patterson and the Emergency of Now," in the March 2016 publication of the Glacier Hub, Jody discusses the use of photography as a platform for activism and reflects on her deep appreciation of nature. Jody discusses in this piece how once-in-a-lifetime moments are immediately lost if not acted upon. She is quoted in the interview as saying, "The emergency of now is a core philosophy that relates to my personal, aesthetic, and political views of life. Personally, it reminds me to pay attention to what is important about a day and or a life. You know, the don't sweat the small stuff sort of thing. Aesthetically, it prompts me to seek, notice, and respond to life and not take it for granted. So often people believe the things they witness, love, or know will always be accessible to us, but life dictates otherwise." Jody said this in 2016, many years before the diagnosis that changed her life. I encourage you to look through the lens that Jody viewed life, read about her work, explore her website and her written work in the journal articles and books she published. I challenge you to become inspired, feel delighted, and imagine that Jody is right by your side. Jody found delight everywhere she was. because she saw life through a lens of wonder and curiosity. She is a creator and an inventor of ideas and thought. These qualities exude naturally from her, and she felt that life is about experiences and storytelling. On her parents' most recent trip to South Carolina to see Jody, her dad found a painted rock that he picked up and gave to Jody. She loved it, and its message which read, "When life gives you 100 reasons to cry, show life that you have 1,000 reasons to smile." Please take one of the hand-painted rocks that we have brought as a gift to you today. Keep it in your pocket and go live your life in a way that honors Jody. She will be rooting for all of us, and we will see her again.
My name is Olivia, and I made this note with it, and Jody was alive. If there was a competition to pick your favorite aunt, it would always be you. And we all love her, but there always will be one